As Okon looked out the window, a storm of emotions raged inside him. Helplessness, anger, shame. Down the dusty road, a truck rolled forward. Behind it came people. Many people. It looked as though the entire village had come out. And not for a good cause. They were close now. Close enough for Okon to see faces he recognized. Faces that had once smiled at him. He let the curtain fall and sat heavily on the edge of his bed. From the next room he heard weeping. Mabel. He couldn't turn. Couldn't look. The pressure was unbearable. How could he have known 22 years ago that the woman he chose would one day be forced into this position? Things were different earlier on. Home felt different. They were hopeful for a bright future. But now he felt like a failure. Her weeping grew louder, and so did the noise outside. 10 years into his marriage, he had asked the elders for time, and they had given it to him, because he was a son of the soil. He was one of them. 15 years into his marriage, he had asked for more grace. It was given, but with a warning, and an expiration date. That expiration date was his 21st anniversary. Last year. But still, nothing had changed. He had hoped, prayed, that they had forgotten. But they hadn't. And today they came with vengeance. Everything combined felt like torture. There was a bang on the door. Loud. Sudden. This was no nightmare. Mabel's weeping stopped. But he heard movement. He knew what she was doing. He hesitated. Just a moment too long. The second bang was louder. So loud it sounded as though the door would crack. Okon opened it. A village elder stood outside, stiff and militant. Without a word, he handed Okon a bundle of clothing. Okon dressed in silence. And slowly, he walked outside. A seat had been prepared for him. The village chief, the elders, and their wives were all in attendance. Around them stood villagers, watching, waiting. They wasted no time. The ceremony began. Musicians played. Women dressed in matching outfits danced joyfully. For them, it was a celebration. For Okon, it was an execution. This was the tradition of his tribe. Nothing mattered more than children. And if a wife could not give birth, another would be provided. The music stopped. 8 young women appeared, guiding a concealed figure to the center of the stage. They danced in circles around her, slowly, deliberately, and at the chief's command. The veil was lifted. It revealed the most eligible bachelorette in the village. The beautiful Akiba, 20 years old, young, extraordinarily pretty. Her smile was radiant. She looked straight at Okon as she performed the required ancestral dance, a form of introduction. After taking several traditional oaths, she was escorted down from the stage by the village chief and brought before Okon. The next step was clear. He was expected to dance with her, publicly acknowledging her as his new wife. Then, in full view of the village, he would escort Mabel out of their home in the presence of her replacement. His new wife would immediately take her place in the home, and life would continue. The villagers would celebrate with food and drinks, after which they would all return home, satisfied that they had restored dignity and respect to their son. Okon looked at Akiba. The possibilities were many. She was well-bred, beautiful, and young enough to bear him his very own children. But it wasn't that simple for him. His mind drifted back to the last sound he'd heard from Mabel. the sound of weeping. He imagined her, sitting quietly inside, bags packed, tears exhausted, waiting for him to open the door and look her in the eyes for the very last time before escorting her out. And memories, yes, memories flooded in. He remembered the day he fell from the ladder and broke his leg, how Mabel nursed him back to health. For months, when he couldn't work, she walked 45 minutes to the city market and 45 minutes back, 6 times each week, selling bread in order to put food on the table. He remembered how she encouraged him to buy better tools and a stronger ladder to protect his life. She had worked tirelessly beside him to build their cottage, bit by bit, so they wouldn't have to pay for labor. She listened to his childhood stories over and over again, each time as if it were the first. When her father called him a disgrace for being a carpenter, she left her home in the city and followed her heart, all the way to his village. This village had become her home for 22 years. Again, he looked at Akiba. She was gorgeous and promising, but Mabel had stood the test of time. She knew his heart. She would cross oceans for him. She shielded him, magnified his strengths, and minimized his weaknesses. She came into his life when he had very little. She built with him, and yes, she had no children, but not by choice. If she could, she would give him as many as he wanted. He knew her, and he refused to punish her for something she could not control. And in that moment, Okon did something dangerous, something that had never been done before. He decided for himself. He stood, turned to the chief, and with a steady voice that silenced the entire village, Okon refused. Kiba,